Hello, everybody. Hi, happy Trans Pride. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Bianca Sprague. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the Executive Director of Trans Pride Washington, D.C. We're here, yay! All right, well, as I've shared with you earlier, we do have an amazing program, and we're gonna go ahead and get started. I wanna kind of get a sense of the folks who are attending today, so I'm just gonna ask questions, and you can just raise your hands, right? How many of you here, this is your first time at Trans Pride? Wow, give yourself a round of applause. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you had a great time. This is just the beginning of tonight's program, and I hope that we see you at the after party. How about folks who's been here more than 2 times at Trans Pride? That's right, let's do it. Let's give it a round of applause. Thank you also for being here today. So for those of you, this is your first time at Trans Pride. Trans Pride is an organization organized by trans folks for our community. So all of the members of the planning team do identify within the transgender community. So a lot of the workshops, the organizations, and the resource partners that we have available here today are information and resources that are available for all of us. So I want to thank all of our workshop facilitators for putting together an amazing workshop for everybody. Let's give them a round of applause. I want to thank all of our organizations, community organizers, both local and national, for being here and sharing the resources available for our community. I hope that you all were able to get some additional information today. So let's give them a round of applause as well. I have been part of Trans Pride for just a little over 10 years, and just like many of you, I attended my first one in 2013 as an attendee. And this was right around the time where I am looking for a community in the Washington, D.C. area, and fortunate for my organization was able to connect me to Trans Pride. So that was kind of like my entryway to Trans Pride Washington, D.C. Trans Pride, though, has been an organization for going on 20 years now, founded by the amazing Savannah Wanzer. Let me tell you a little bit of a story of how it started, and Savannah, you can fact check me. That's right, yeah. Savannah will fact check me. But the way I understood it is Savannah just wanted to gather and hang out with her friends on a regular monthly basis to just hang out and catch up in a small space in the church where Savannah was a member. And fast forward to where we are now, we are continuing to grow and have all of you here celebrating Trans Pride with us. So let's give yourself another round of applause. And thank you, Savannah, for putting this together. Now, I am going to bring in some folks for the program that we have. And we'll do some awards, and then we'll have our keynote speaker. But before we get to the rest of the program, I want to bring in 2 of our partners who are part of World Pride Washington, D.C. and the Mayor's Office of the LGBTQ Affair, Japer and Ryan. Ryan from World Pride, who is going to have a few minutes to share a little bit about what's going on, because it also, Trans Pride kicks off World Pride, so I hope you all are excited about World Pride as well.
Well, we want to thank everyone for showing up for the official kickoff to World Pride Washington, D.C. And we are excited that it is here with Trans Pride. As you know, for us, this is an important time to showcase our community here in Washington, as well as the DMV, and show the world that we are more than the Capitol, we are more than the White House, we are more than the national and federal buildings. We are a community, and a community with amazing individuals such as yourselves. So I'm excited that you are here. I hope you are excited to be available, be visible, and show up, especially for those who may not be able to. And let's make sure that we know that when we stand together, when we fight together, we will survive and we will succeed. Let's be resilient.
Thank you, Ryan, and good afternoon, friends, family, community. I'm Japer Bowles, and I have the honor of serving you as the director of the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs here in Washington, D.C. I'm very proud to be representing Mayor Muriel Bowser at one of our most vital community celebrations in our city and as the kickoff for World Pride 2025. This is where we will show the world the power and beauty of our diverse LGBTQIA+ community. Our trans and non-binary community are leading, we are building and thriving in DC, and that is not by accident. It is by the work from the people in this room. So please, let's give a round of applause. You all deserve what's happening today. We have invested in workforce programs, housing access, health equity, and legal protections, and again, it's because of the work that we are building on. Hate crimes are down, our cultural humility trainings are up, but we know that the work is not done. Our mayor believes that creating a pathway to the middle class is for everyone, including our trans and gender nonconforming neighbors. Today, I'm proud to introduce someone helping lead that charge, Ms. Vita Rangel, who I believe is the highest ranking trans-identifying member of the Bowser administration. And so I'm very proud to have her present, just quickly, the proclamation on behalf of Mayor Bowser.
Whereas the City of Washington, D.C. proudly celebrates the rich cultures, histories, and contributions of the LGBTQIA+ individuals and communities, and whereas D.C. Trans Pride Weekend honors the resilience, creativity, and leadership of our transgender, non-binary, gender-expansive, and gender non-conforming residents who have long played a vital role in advancing cultural richness and our D.C. values. And whereas we recognize the unique experiences and challenges faced by transgender, non-binary, gender-expansive, and gender non-conforming individuals, and remain committed to being a supportive city for all who live, work, and visit here. And whereas advocates, artists, organizers, and community members have made immeasurable contributions to advancing LGBTQIA+ rights and continue to inspire new generations with advocacy, perseverance, and strength. And whereas DC Trans Pride Weekend celebrates the many traditions, histories, and identities that enrich our community. And whereas we are proud to be the host of World Pride 2025 and will demonstrate our commitment to community, to uplifting and celebrating the voices, leadership, and experiences of transgender, non-binary, gender-expansive, and gender non-conforming individuals, and ensuring that all are seen, heard, valued, appreciated, and loved. Now, therefore, the Mayor of Washington, D.C. does hereby proclaim May 17th to 18th, 2025 as D.C. Trans Pride Weekend and does commend this observance to all Washingtonians, encouraging residents and visitors to celebrate the contributions of all LGBTQIA+ individuals and to continue expressing and defending our D.C. values.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Ryan, Vita, and Japer. Let's give them another round of applause. All right. I introduced Savannah, so you all know who Savannah is. Let's give it up for Savannah. I say this all the time. I'm really grateful and thankful that Savannah, from a small vision of getting her friends together to where we are now, I'm forever grateful because I definitely have transpired, be part of my transition journey, and I'm always going to be thankful for that. So thank you for creating this space for all of us. I want to hand the mic to Savannah to share a little bit more about her vision and share a little bit about some of the things that are happening for Transpired. So Savannah, mic's yours.
Hello, everyone. I was told I had a brief time to talk up here, but I wanted to say one thing by seeing everyone. And from the beginning, when I walked in the door, only one thing came to me, and that's dream the impossible dream. Y'all know I'm a crybaby, so if we get into that. Thank you. First of all, I have to thank people that I've passed the torch to. And I have to thank Bianca totally for making stuff come together. I love you too. And I want all of our older seniors to pass the torch to someone that you know is going to keep your vision alive. So thanks for everyone that comes together, the team, the people that did everything from graphics to welcome you coming into the door. It's just something that I will carry to my heart forever. So thank you for 40 and 50 more years. Make sure y'all get, y'all know I'm loud, period, so. Make sure if y'all see me, I want to give y'all information of all the transgender events that that's highlighting our community and making us feel welcome and grand. And especially we want y'all to register for the brunch/jazz show, and that's the last insert. And we need people to register so we can get a head count.
All right. Thank you.
All right, I'm sitting back there now, baby.
Let's give it up for Savannah one more time, everybody. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next part of our program today, which is awarding and honoring and celebrating members of our community who have done a lot of the work that creates spaces for all of us. These individuals are members of our community who are local and have been doing a lot of this work for many, many years. And part of Transpired Washington, D.C. is not only creating the space for all of us, but also highlighting our community members who's doing the work and continuing to do the work. So that's what we're going to do today. I will give a little bit of background, though. This year, so our process is we open up an application to our community members where they get to nominate members of the community who's doing the work. And this year is our largest number of people who have submitted nominations. So let's give everybody a round of applause. I think that shows that there are so many of our siblings who are not being highlighted, and I wish that we can highlight all of them. But if we do, we're gonna be here until midnight. So we're gonna highlight and celebrate 4 of the individuals who have been selected by the planning committee and will receive their award today. So I'm going to start with our first Engendered Spirit Award, which is. Let me read a little bit about our first Engendered Spirit Award recipient. Lyra McMillan is our first Engendered Spirit Award recipient. Lyra is a co-chair and founder of the Metro DC Democratic Socialists of America's Bodily Autonomy, Trans and Queer Liberation Campaign. Yep, let's give it. And a member of the Bodily Autonomy Coordinating Committee. Through her tenure, she has worked tirelessly to organize for and win concrete improvements for her trans siblings across the DMV. She initiated the campaign's Project Sanctuary, increasing trans protections in Northern Virginia. Under her leadership, Alexandria and Arlington County have unanimously enacted sanctuary policy resolutions, that declaratively affirm and protect the trans community's rights to bodily autonomy, gender-affirming care, and full equal rights. Since November 2024, she has helped lead and coordinate significant regional and national rapid responses campaigns fighting the right-wing attacks on the trans community. Lyra mounted pressure campaigns against the NDAA gender-affirming care ban, the Title IX bills that would redefine sex and gender, and coordinated with other leaders to galvanize the effective response and campaign against Children's National Hospital's suspension of gender-affirming care. That campaign generated more than 100,000 letters to the Office of the DC Attorney General, Deputy Mayor for Health, and executives at Children's National, and culminated with a picket line rally outside the DC Attorney General's office that brought together labor groups, parents of impacted minors, and other allies. Shortly after the rally, Children's resumed care for existing patients. Beyond these campaigns, Lyra has helped lead the launch of Trans Day of Vision in DC, mentored new organizers and activists, extended mutual aid efforts, grew a national LGBTQIA+ archiving effort, and organized rallies and appearances across the region. She's also a software engineer working on reducing preventable deaths through improvements in healthcare delivery, as well as a parent of a teenager. In her limited spare time, enjoys reading and live music. Everybody, let's give it up for Engendered Spirit awardee Lyra McMillan. All right, let's give it up one more time for Lyra, everybody. All right, our next Engendered Spirit Award. Pip Baitinger is a community organizer, public servant, and writer dedicated to building and uplifting the communities she inhabits towards collective liberation. She serves as the LGBTQ+ Veterans Outreach Specialist for the DC Mayor's Office and is currently focused on organizing veterans and trans-specific programming for World Pride 2025. In her current role, she is also dedicated to ensuring that DC veterans receive the health care and services they are entitled to, no matter their background or identity. Pip is a proud queer trans woman veteran and served for 4 years in the active duty Air Force. Before joining the mayor's office, she studied international relations in Italy and DC at Johns Hopkins SAIS. At Johns Hopkins, she studied and researched how technology impacts LGBTQ+ communities globally. Her writing has been published in academic journals such as Democracy and Society, Indian Public Policy Review, SAIS Perspectives, and in local small presses around the city. In addition to an MA in international relations from Johns Hopkins, Pip also holds a BS in economics from Penn State. In her free time, you can find Pip biking around the city at one of the local punk concerts in DC or reading and writing. Everybody, let's give it up for Pip Baitinger. Let's give it up for Pip again. Steph Niaupari is, yes. Steph is the senior manager at Grindr for Equality at Grindr, where they build global partnerships with LGBTQ plus activists, public health agencies, and service organizations to engage and empower users around safety, advocacy, and sexual health. As a trans non-binary Ecuadorian, Steph navigates multiple identities in 7 languages. Very good. Bringing over 12 years of experience in gender equity and public policy. They are the founder of Plantita Power. That's right. I got one of their plants. A grassroots food and body liberation movement centering QT BIPOC in Washington, D.C. Each year, they distributed 3,000 plus seeds, kits, and seedings to support food sovereignty, ancestral practices, and trans-affirming wellness. The project blends ecological care with healing justice through gardening workshops, plant shares, and mutual aid. Steph serves as the UNDP LGBTI Data Project Advisory Committee, advancing inclusive development through better data collection and use, and is an advisory member of the Pleasure Project, promoting global sex-positive health education. Previously, Steph led national Latino outreach for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services COVID-19 campaign, ensuring multilingual, culturally responsive messaging reach LGBTQ+ and immigrant communities. As vice president of the Latinx History Project, they reimagined DC Latinx Pride as a space centering trans, queer, and disabled Latinx voices. Steph holds an MA in International Development, dual BAs in International Studies and Spanish from Gallaudet University, and an AA in Deaf Studies from CU NY LaGuardia. They are currently completing a thesis on non-binary recognition in Ecuador at Flaxo, Ecuador. Now based in Washington, D.C., Steph is deeply committed to fostering collective care, food justice, and supporting mutual aid efforts rooted in QT BIPOC liberation. Everybody, let's give it up for Steph Niaupari. All right, on to our next Engendered Spirit awardee. All right, here we go. Let's give it up for Hayden, everybody. Hayden Gise is a legendary union organizer and one of the most accomplished trans organizers of our time. Based in Washington, D.C., she organizes and negotiates union contracts for workers across the region. A proud trans woman and dyke, Hayden organizes with the Metro D.C. Democratic Socialists of America and has led key demonstrations with the Bodily Autonomy Working Group. Her work reflects an unwavering commitment to justice, solidarity, and collective liberation. Everyone, let's give it up for Hayden Gise. Let's give it up one more time for 2025 Engendered Spirit Award recipients. All right. I'm looking. Are we ready for our keynote speaker? Are we excited for our keynote speaker? Do we have... I'm looking. Well, yeah. Are they here? I need signs. Oh. I need music. You can't just... Nancy, let's give it up for Nancy from Latinx History Project and Latinx Pride. Let me actually take this moment while we're waiting for our keynote speaker to just really thank you, first and foremost, all of you, for being here today. So let's give yourself a round of applause. I want to thank our amazing volunteers for supporting our events today. So let's give them a round of applause. I would also like to extend my thanks and gratitude to our amazing interpreters who are doing an amazing job. Thank you, everybody. I want to thank all of our workshop facilitators for putting together an amazing content for everybody. Our resource fair exhibitors for being here today, offering tools and resources available for all of us. So let's give yourself a round of applause. I also want to thank all of our partners and our sponsors. So Japer from the Mayor's Office, Ryan and the team from Capital Pride Alliance, and all of our partners who have continued to support Trans Pride year after year. Let's give them a round of applause as well. And lastly, and I'm looking at D, I want all of the planning team members, if you're in the room, to stand up. Come on, if you're in the room, stand up and thank them. Thank them for an amazing Trans Pride that we put together for all of you. I hope that you all are having a good time and that you were able to connect and have a relationship with new friends and get reunited with friends that you've met from last year. And I can't wait to see you all next year. All right, I'm getting the timer. Here we go. Okay, let's do this. All right, are we ready for our keynote speaker? Our keynote speaker for today is Schuyler Bailar. Yep. Schuyler is an educator, advocate, and best-selling author who made history as the first transgender athlete to compete in any sport on an NCAA Division I men's team. Let's give it up for Schuyler. Originally recruited to swim for the Harvard's women's team, Schuyler made the difficult choice to transition while potentially giving up the prospect of being a women's NCAA champion. His story has appeared everywhere from 60 Minutes to The Washington Post and The Ellen Show. Schuyler's tirelessly advocacy has earned him numerous honors, including Forbes 30 Under 30 and the Out 100. In 2013, Schuyler's critically acclaimed nonfiction bestseller became the preeminent resource on trans inclusion, He, She, They, How We Talk About Gender and Why It Matters. Schuyler's work includes his middle grade novel, Obi Is Man Enough, his online gender literacy training, lanechanger.com, and his hit podcast, Dear Schuyler, including exclusive interviews with trans icons and allies like Leah Thomas, Dylan Mulvaney, Rafael De La Fuente, and many more. Everyone, let's give a good, amazing Washington, D.C. to our keynote speaker, Schuyler Bailar. Yeah.
everybody. Wow. Hi, folks. I'm so excited to be here. It's really lovely to see you all. Bianca, thank you so much for the warm welcome, and thank you so much to all the volunteers who are making this possible, and to you all for being here. I'm so heartened to share this space with you. And also, of course, congratulations to all the awardees that you all were cheering for. I was sitting, so there's like a little room right behind there. You can't see it, but there's a room behind there. And I was sitting and sort of listening to the cheers as I prepared what I was thinking about saying to you today. And I felt so excited to hear trans joy, because that's what I felt I was hearing. And I was thinking about this morning when I got on the plane to come here. And I actually grew up in DC, so this is like a welcome home to me, which feels really special. And I was thinking about coming back to DC, and DC has, when you go to high school someplace, it's not always a place that you love, So I think in high school I wasn't like, I love DC, but as I've grown away, actually, and moved away, and consistently come back, I've found a lot of love for this place. But as I was on the plane, I thought about high school, and I thought about, actually, I was just talking about this with like a friend of mine, how I walked across the graduation stage in high school in a bright white dress, which is what we were all required to do. And then I thought about how miserable that time was. And actually, the auditorium looked very similar to this. It was one of the ones where you had to, sit in these chairs and look at a stage. That's most auditoriums, huh? Anywho, we were in an auditorium like this, and we paraded across the stage, and I wore my high heels and this white dress, and it was supposed to be this like exciting finish to 12 years or 13 years of grade school, and we were bonding with all my classmates. Actually went to the same school, K through 12, so I'd known these kids for maybe a little too long. But we're supposed to be celebrating together, right? And we walk across the stage, we get our diplomas, and the next day, I shipped myself off to a residential treatment center for eating disorders. This wasn't a celebration, this was deep misery. And I had held on to get to that graduation stage. I had told my family and my friends, I'm going to graduate, and then I need to figure out what's going on. At the time, I had been recruited to swim for Harvard women's swim team, and that was like a dream come true. That is what I had been working, I felt my whole life to do. I had gotten straight A's in school. I had taken all these AP courses, right? All of these things seemed to have lined up for me, and I felt I had worked so hard to make these things line up. But when I ended high school, sitting in that white dress, holding my diploma, I was miserable. I felt so sad and lost, disconnected. I didn't feel any of the celebration that it seemed my classmates felt. And so like I said, the next day I shipped off to this mental health center to really figure out what was going on. And it was there, for the first time in my life, that I slowed down. I had to ask myself who I was without all of this intervention, without all of these different parts that I had used to define myself. I wasn't swimming. And previously I'd been swimming 20 hours a week, every single week. All of my life it felt was half underwater, right? So I wasn't swimming, I wasn't seeing my family, I wasn't around my friends, I wasn't eating any of the same food, I wasn't in school anymore. And so no longer could I define myself by what I could do, right? By who I was around, by what I was performing like in the pool. I had to define myself by just me. And it was in that quiet space that I was able to figure out who I actually am, and it wasn't a woman. I am not this woman I thought I was supposed to be, that everybody else told me I am. I realized I'm transgender, right? I realized I'm a transgender man, but you already knew that. So as I figured this out about myself, right, sports became a really big part of what I needed to deal with in terms of how I was going to show up. And I tell you this story to start. You all already know from my introduction that I ended up becoming the first trans athlete on a D1 men's team in college. But thank you. But my point in telling you the behind the scenes part of that was really what culminated in me figuring something out about myself was this space, this time away actually from a lot of my life, of this focus that I hadn't previously put on who I am inside versus who everybody else wanted me to be. And when I sat on the plane this morning thinking about coming back to DC and coming back to this place where I spent all of my childhood, there was, I think, this like upwelling of emotion, feeling like there was
both safety in this town. This is where my family is from. My grandparents and my parents still live here. But there was also this deep sense of unsafety, right, from an internal place. And so returning to come give this speech here and to tell you all a bit about myself at Trans Pride in DC, not very far from where I went to high school, feels so powerful and so special because I'm here today not in a white dress, in more of myself, in so much more, I think, breadth and space that I have learned to cultivate for who I am. And I hope that's something that you all are also able to do or have done or are continuing to do. Now, as I said, in terms of being a trans athlete, so I became the first openly trans athlete in college. And after that, so this was 2015, walked onto the men's team, tried to wear a Speedo, was absolutely terrified, very scary experience. Walked into the men's locker room, was like, oh my God, this is filled with men. Okay. And somehow survived all 4 years on that team. I make fun. It was a beautiful experience in many ways, but it was also really lonely. There weren't other trans athletes that I knew like me who I could talk to. My teammate was all my teammates were cisgender as far as I knew at the time. I didn't have people to look to and say, hey, how do you have this experience? Like, what should I do when my teammates misgender me? What should I do if, X, Y, and Z person says X, Y, and Z about me? What do I do about the media and the fact that I am asked to be giving all of these interviews, right? I didn't have somebody to guide me through it. I had support, don't get me wrong, and I feel very lucky to have the support that I had, but I didn't have an example. And so instead of asking for somebody to be that example, I tried to explain. I answered people's questions, I did the press interviews, and I actually, if you add it all up, I gave over 100 speeches like this one before I graduated from college. Thank you. I say this, though, because I actually didn't choose to be this advocate. I didn't choose to be an educator. I thought, you know what, somebody asked me to explain what being trans means. Okay. Right? Somebody has asked me to tell my story and share what it's like to be a trans athlete. Okay, right? And sort of one thing led to another until I continued to do this and people began to call me an advocate. And I think a lot about this title of advocate, and how it was placed onto me and people would say, you're an advocate, Schuyler. And in college, I actually would laugh at them. I'd say, what do you mean? I'm not an advocate. All I am is trans and an athlete and talking about it. And when we put those things together, you call it advocacy, you call it politicization, you call it political, but I'm just me. And I happen to be playing my sport. And I know that so many of you all here hold these intersections where we're both just trying to be ourselves and also asked to hold all of these questions and burdens for others. And so when I think about doing this work, and I think about the context of this work, and especially the context of talking outside of community, I think it's so special to be here with you all in community. I know many of you are also trans. Make some noise if you're also trans. Woo! That made me feel emotional. That was so beautiful. Thank you. But seriously, I mean, I have so much, I spend so much time in spaces where if I had said that, we would have like 2 people, maybe, or maybe me screaming, right? Saying, yeah, I'm trans, what about you, right? So I share this because I think this educational work, right, is important, and some of the really critical work happens with us in community, right? So I've given now over almost 600 speeches in the past 10 years, and I am often asked to give this speech as an inspirational talk, right? Come be an inspirational speaker, be a motivational speaker. Now that they're ruling out DEI, that's even happening more because we got to depoliticize this talk. And so people ask me to, come to give this inspirational talk. And for a while that felt okay. I understand that I'm like a first of some kind and that feels inspirational. But here's the problem now, right? So I became that athlete, shared my story, said, hey, everybody, I want to share my story as an openly trans person so that we know that this is possible, right? I want other trans people to know that they can both be themselves and do the things that they love. And now, all right, 10 years later, more than 10 years later, it is impossible for so many other trans kids to do the same, right? They have outlawed the inclusion of trans athletes in gender-aligned teams in over 26 states, and we also have an executive order that has banned the inclusion of trans women at the federal level, all right, in women's category sports. I'm not saying that to bring us down. I'm saying that to contextualize where we're at, right? I am supposed to be telling, not in this particular situation, but in general, an inspirational story that now so many trans kids cannot do. And when I think about that and I come to these spaces, I struggle so much to figure out what I should say and how I should hold a space when I'm telling a story about my journey that is impossible for other people like me. And I think about, right now, I do a lot of coaching of trans young people, and a lot of them are also trans athletes, and many of them can no longer play sports. They cannot play on their teams. They have been kicked out of wherever they are, whatever organizing body that used to include them and now does not. And we're talking about, 11-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds. We're talking about children, right? And as I think about that, oftentimes the conversations that I have with these kids, I can't sit there and say, hey, everything's gonna be okay. It will over time, but right now, it's not okay, right? And I'm not here to tell you that everything right now is okay, and I want us to find a way that we can take care of ourselves simultaneously. Because here's the most important part about what's going on: the legislation, the executive orders, the bans, the terrorization that's occurring at a fascist government level. That is causing us to not only lose the things that they are legislating us out of, but also other things that they shouldn't have access to. So I think about it this way. If I'm walking down the street and I see these beautiful flowers, my neighbor has these little flowers. They're called bleeding hearts, which go figure. But there's like a vine, basically, and they have these little hanging hearts. Has anybody seen a bleeding heart flower? Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Queer community. Love it. So there are all these little dangling heart-shaped flowers, and they're bright pink, and they have a little white flower. They're so pretty, okay? And my wife loves smelling flowers, so oftentimes we go on these walks, and we're walking the dogs, and we're smelling the flowers, and just looking at the flowers. And it honestly brings us both so much joy. On days when I am so miserable because I've spent way too much time on my social media, or because I've read some article or too many articles, or I've had a really hard session with somebody who has lost some sort of right to something because of the anti-trans legislation, or even honestly this morning I was reading about a mass amount of ICE raids that are happening in Massachusetts, and I'm terrified for all the people that I love that are both immigrants and also people who have dissented against the government, like perhaps myself. So I have moments, right, where these things are really dark and really heavy. And I even had a moment in the green room before I came in here, and I was like, I just feel really, honestly depressed about the world. And maybe that's something that you all have felt too. And in those moments, are the flowers less pretty, right? Is the walk with the dog less worth it? Is connecting with my wife as we walk around this beautiful neighborhood with all these flowers, do they suddenly become less potent in how they smell? The answer is no, but it might feel like yes, right? We might stop actually enjoying these little bits of joy that we can still garner from the world. And so what I've been talking to everybody who will listen to me about this is the concept that we should only, and can really only, let transphobia take what it will take and nothing more. Only let it take what it has access to and nothing more. Don't give it access to the flowers. Don't give it access to your holding of your partner's your hand. Don't give it access. Don't give it access to the puppy smells, right? Does everybody like smelling your puppy? Okay. Don't give it access to all of these things that it has no business being near. Right? We have so much more than what the law allows us to have. And I think when we forget that, they win. They can take me out of sports. They can take my healthcare away. They can take me out of the bathrooms. They can ban our history, but we still have each other. We still have ourselves. There is so much that they can never take from us. And I think we have to remember that as we move through this time, because I have no doubt that in the future, that we will be okay, that this is not going to be the reality forever. Progress always moves forward, and sometimes it takes a couple steps backwards, right? We are now in that place of going backwards, but we're going to go forwards, and we have to keep on going keep on having to take care of ourselves as we move forward, because if we don't, they win before they even win. Right? So I've been thinking about what are those ways that we take care of ourselves, right? What are the ways that we show up for ourselves that allow us to make those small steps as the world feels so massively horrible, unimaginable, atrocious, while genocide is perpetrated in Palestine, in Congo, in Sudan, right? When we watch all of this happen, we see people being abducted by ICE. We see all of our rights being taken here in this country in terms of anti-trans rhetoric. How do we still take care of ourselves? Because the flowers are still growing, because the dog is still needing to take a walk, right? Because we still need to hold each other's hands and give each other hugs. A lot of what I think about is, what is the smallest thing that I can do to take care of myself? Not the big things, not the spa days, not the big, I don't know, a trip or a road trip or a day somewhere, even like a big restaurant dinner or something, whatever makes you feel happy. What are the smallest things? Those great big things are great as well, but they're not as sustainable, maybe not as accessible, not as regular and consistent. What are the smallest things we can do to take care of ourselves? That's why I mentioned the smelling of the flowers. It takes 2 seconds, right? Or even on the drive here, I saw a really cool plant. One of you probably knows what it's called, but it was like a monstera-looking plant thing, and I was like, wow, that's so cool. And I was like literally in the middle of saying something really horrible about the world, and I was like, whoa, cool, plant, right? Like, you probably can relate, I hope. But my point is, right, that moment, nobody can take that from me. And we have to hold on to those moments. So how can you foster them with each other? What are your moments? Maybe it's not the monstera plant or the bleeding heart flowers. I guess I've really painted myself as a botanist. I would like to be very clear that I own none of the plants in my household. And all of them would be very dead if my wife was not in the house. I like to observe. My thumb is not green at all. Anywho, what are the things that bring you that type of joy, right? That are totally out of reach from anybody else taking from you. I have a little essential oils roller pin thing in my desk. So at any point I can feel like I'm at the spa for just a second, right? Is it a deep breath, right? One big deep breath that we take between a meeting, before we pick up the phone, while we're looking at social media, right? What is the smallest thing you can give yourself? And then we can take that and we can offer it to other people. What is the smallest thing that you can offer somebody else? A lot of times we think about what's the biggest thing. How can we donate this money, or be a lawyer and work with the ACLU? If you can do that, fantastic. But most of us probably don't have all of the money in the world to fight the billionaires or to maybe be a lawyer. And so what are the smallest things we can do to take care of each other, right? What is the least we can do? I know that sounds kind of funny, but that's what's sustainable. And that actually, if you aggregate it and put it all together, is a lot, right? Can you drive your friends to a protest if you're not going to go to the protest? Can you make your friend dinner? Can you just body double with somebody and be around them because they're having a tough day, right? I have a couple friends who are really afraid to be in public right now because maybe the way that they present, in many different ways, it could be racially or gender-wise or what have you, they are feeling targeted, right, by a lot of the systemic oppression. And so I just go with them places, right? It's something simple. What are the smallest things that you can do for others around you? When I think about small things, one of the things that comes up for me that I think is really, really central is just small acts of love, right? What are the small acts of love that you can provide to other people? And as I was, again, coming to here on the plane this morning, I mentioned earlier my grandparents live here in DC, and they have since the early 70s. And so coming here always means visiting them. And there was a time when I was really afraid of being close with my grandparents. So I spent my whole life with them, living about 5 minutes away from where I grew up. We had weekly dinners with my grandparents. We saw them at church all the time. My grandmother is very, very, very Catholic, so we were often going to Catholic church with them. My grandmother and both my grandparents are also immigrants from Korea. And this sort of, I want to say very strong history of actually womanhood specifically is where my grandmother and my mom come from. So my grandmother's mom, my grandmother herself is North Korean, all right? And her mom led the charge of her family leaving North Korea right before the war broke out, and Korea was separated into North and South Korea. All right, so she walked from North Korea to South Korea in order to escape right before the war broke out. And then my grandmother was the first of her family for 45 generations to leave Korea, the Korean peninsula, and actually come to the United States. And then my mom grew up in the United States. So this history of sort of women pioneers is where I come from. And when I was coming out as transgender, I was really afraid to tell my grandmother because this history of womanhood felt very important to me, because I felt like this daughter of this lineage, because my grandmother also was very clear about who she expected me to become. And there was a lot of implicit and very explicit ways of telling me who she thought I needed to become. I probably was gifted every single product in the Clinique line because she really likes Clinique, and I guess I'm supposed to as well. All of the clothing she ever gifted me was like pink skirts and, I don't know, pink dresses and all these kinds of things. It was very clear, right, who she wanted me to be. She's always asking me, like, when are you going to bring home a nice Korean boy? And I was always like, well, little does she know it's going to be me. Anywho, so I was very afraid. I'm hopefully painting a successful picture of the fact I was very afraid to tell her that I would actually be this Korean boy, right? And especially in combination with her Catholicism and her religious beliefs and just kind of all the baggage that might come with, right? So she's like an immigrant Korean Catholic woman, right? So like I know a lot of the work that I do is trying to bust stereotypes, but let's just bring it back for a second. There's a bit of a stereotype of how that person might react to me as a trans kid, right? So I spent a long time trying to figure out what to say. And initially, I wrote this like long Facebook post because it was 2015, and that's what you did when you share people information. So I wrote this big long Facebook post being like, I'm transgender, and this is what I'm doing, and please call me he, him pronouns. I'm going to be on the men's team, blah, blah, blah. And I posted it, and then I remembered that my grandmother has a Facebook, and so I blocked her on Facebook. And then I told all of her friends on Facebook, because she has friends on Facebook, and I said, please don't tell her. I'm going to get there. Just let me do it on my own. Also, she calls Facebook FaceTime, which I think is hilarious. But anywho, I spent all this time trying to figure out what to tell her. And after this Facebook post, I tried to craft like a letter to read to her. And I was going to tell it to her in person, but I was really afraid of not being able to get the words to come out. So I wrote this letter. And I tried to translate it as well. There's a little bit of a language barrier. So I thought maybe if I can find the Korean words, that'll make it easier. So I Googled, transgender in Korean. Turns out it is transgender. Just said with a Korean accent. So it sounds like turansu gender. Gay, for example, is gay. Very, helpful. It wasn't going to help me at all. So instead of translating my coming out letter to her, I explained what it meant to be trans. I said, Harmony, this is what it means. And I sort of gave her evidence. I was like, don't you remember how I used to more dress like a boy when I was a kid, right? I wanted to give her proof, if you will. Probably unnecessary, but I wanted to give her some information. And I ended by saying, Harmony, grandmother, I'm telling you this because I love you, because I respect you, and because I desperately hope that you will stay in my life. I wrote this letter, and I have to be honest with you, I was not sure that it was going to work. In fact, I was really pessimistic. I thought, there's a chance that this goes well, but it's much more likely that this does not. This might be the last time that I speak with my grandmother, but I really do need to tell her out of respect. So my mother and I, we go read her this letter. We sit down at the table at their house, and it's my grandmother, my grandfather, and my great aunt. They all live together. I sit down at the table, and I read them the letter, and I end with, I love you, and then I wait. My grandfather, he starts to clap. And he's got this like this slow old man clap. And he goes, so, you come out of closet now. I have nothing to say. I don't know that he knew the words coming out of the closet. So I'm mostly just sitting there like, excuse me? And he goes, oh, congratulations. Both times with the hand motion. Very Korean harabaji of him, grandfather of him. Anyway, so he says this. I'm like, okay, wow. So now I learned that he knows what coming out of the closet means. And my great aunt, she gives me a squeeze on the hand. She gets up to make tea. Her love has been communicated. And nobody ever worried about my kunimo, my great aunt. Or really harabaji, my grandfather either. He's a little bit of a scholar with his head in a book. So he does not run the household. My grandmother does. So now we've got two out of the way. I'm looking at Harmony, my grandmother, still petrified. She's got this really serious look on her face. She's like, I knew that. I was like, what? What do you mean you knew that? I didn't know this. How did you know? She's like, I saw something gay on FaceTime. I said, you saw what, where? She meant she saw a post that had a rainbow on it like 5 years prior on Facebook, not FaceTime. And it had like made her think of queerness or something. I don't know. That was not the way she explained it. But she said something like that, and I was like, okay. And then she launches into this discussion of all these things about trans identity that are false, all kinds of biological underpinnings that are not scientifically upheld. But that's okay. It got her there. She had like watched all these like YouTube videos about this and came to this conclusion that this is what trans people were. And so she said, okay, that's fine. I have 2 grandsons from your mother. I have a younger brother. She says, that's fine. My mom has now burst into tears, which I probably had seen maybe once prior. And there's no tissues in the house because Koreans don't like tissues, so to go find the tissue box. And anyway, so then we're back at the table again, and Harmony now launches into her next diatribe of things that she's talking about. And she says, okay, so here's the thing. You can be a boy. You can be a brother. You can be a husband. I said, Harmony, I'm 18. Slow down. There's that Korean boy thing again, right? She says, you can be a man. But in Korean culture, it is the daughter's responsibility to take care of the parents. And your mother has no daughters. It is still your responsibility, Schuyler, to take care of your parents. So I actually have those words, pumo hyodo. It means take care of your parents, or the syllables being mother, father, filial piety, tattooed in Harmony's handwriting beneath my mastectomy scar next to my heart. It is my tribute to my history, the people from which I come, the country, the land from which my family comes. It is a tribute to my parents, who I will do my best to take care of. They're still currently partially taking care of me, but at some point that role will flip. My dad is somewhere here. I don't know where he is, but he's Dad, where are you? I don't know where wait. I can't see him, but he's here somewhere. Oh, he's over there. Okay, yes. So a tribute to that promise, right, to take care of my parents one day, and a tribute to all of the strong womanhood that birthed me, that I come from, and really a tribute to the daughterhood that I was assigned, never truly identified with, but the duties of which I will happily fulfill. A bit of the tattoo is me straddling culture, straddling gender, straddling all of these expectations and finding what works for me. And I share this story with you to close today because I think sometimes people do leap over culture and faith and generation and language and everything my grandmother could have used to say no to instead say yes, right? To do that smallest act of love, just to show up, right? And I do think this is the smallest act we can give others and also one of the most important, one of the largest acts of love we can give to other people. And so I hope that more and more we can find this type of love in others. I know right now that this love that I have from my Korean immigrant grandmother is absolutely a privilege. When I sent her the photo of that tattoo, I actually did send her a photo. It's like sending my grandmother a shirtless photo. But anywho, I sent her this photo of my tattoo. She had like written it out, and I later learned that she actually sent the handwriting to my uncle, who then like fixed the hand. She wanted it to be perfect. She's very much a perfectionist. So he like edited the file online, and then so much love from my family went into this tattoo. And I sent her the photo, and she responded with a text. Again, in the end, very, very woke grandmother. Tattoos, texting. She even used emojis, trans people, right? So anyways, she writes back this text that says, it's like the praying hands emoji. And she says, thank you for taking this eternal vow to take care of your parents. But I think that this kind of love should not be a privilege, right? This kind of love for me, it is a privilege in this world right now because so many of us, and so many trans people specifically, don't have this kind of unconditional love, but we should. And part of the world that I'm fighting for is a world in which it is ubiquitous. This kind of love is something we give freely and we receive often. This kind of love should be familiar to every single one of us. And so I hope you will join me in fighting for that day. But until that day, I hope that these stories, and especially my grandmother and her YouTube learning, and her Facebook and FaceTime can serve as an example for the kind of love that we not only can give to each other, but that we all deserve in ourselves. Thank you so much for having me today.
Can you stay for like a group photo with everybody?
Yeah, you want to stay here?
Yeah, very good. Let's give it up for Schuyler one more time, everybody. So many takeaways. Thank you, Schuyler, for joining us today. Before I share the last announcement, we actually want to get a group photo. So you're going to say where you are. You can stand up, you can sit down, whatever feels comfortable for you. And we're going to have our amazing Dee and maybe our photographer, Media, who's going to take a photo for us. So if everybody can just gather the folks who are on the side together this way, and they're going to take the group shot from the stage. All right, let's do this. There we go. So just get friendly with everybody.
Okay, beautiful. All right, now let's do just some action. Put your hands up in the air. Give me some pride. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to ask everyone to say trans pride after I say trans pride. And we're going to go back and forth. Ready? Trans pride! Trans pride! Trans pride! Trans pride! Woo! Thank you so much, y'all.